I am with Marianne Walker from Copic, and she has some neat techniques for us. You know when you have a bunch of supplies, right? And they don't coordinate, but yet you want them to?
I know, it's such a pain because you think you've got the perfect paper, the perfect ribbon, and then when you go to your project, nothing matches.
Right.
And so there's an easy way to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Here's this album that you created.
So this is an album I made for my brother, and it's got wood, it's got metal, it's got crystal stars.
A little bit of chipboard.
It's got a little bit of everything, and it didn't match.
Before you started working.
Before I started working.
Give an example here, because these are wonderful colors. These are bright, but you wanted the more muted tones.
Yeah, this just didn't work. And so how am I going to alter this and yet get all of my elements to match?
Show me how you did this.
Okay.
Paper and changed it, antiqued almost.
Antiqued it. So I'm using an alcohol ink in a large marker.
Yeah, it has a large chisel tip.
And it just goes on smoothly.
Oh, you create your new background paper.
So I could...
Yeah, if you do more passes, do you get a darker look?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I can give myself stripes.
Plaids.
Plaids.
Okay.
For this project, I want the edges to be a little darker. So I'm going over it, darkening the edges.
And this is actually a wood piece that you put paper on, and you can go along the edges along here too to darken them.
So on this antiqued board, I want it to be darker on the edge.
Okay.
So there, I can color the edges to match. And now I've got a perfect page to add all of my other elements to.
And so this is an alcohol ink we're using that we're going to change some other elements. Let's look at this right here.
Okay, so we just altered the wood, and now let's look at what we've got to work with. Wood, man, that's going to be hard because that's in a funky shape.
3D.
3D. I've got metal, I've got little crystal stars, and these green letters. They've got sparkles on them. It's just not going to work very easily. Well, the nice thing about the alcohol inks is that you can spray them in an airbrush.
Can you use any kind of marker here? Because I have a lot of markers in my life with kids, right?
No, it has to be these special alcohol-based markers.
Let's see how you do it.
Okay, so on the red wood flourish, I'm going to pop it in. There are two ends on this marker. I'm going to use the chisel end. And you see it gives me a nice spray pattern.
Sure.
So I'm just going right over my wood flourish.
Using what I call canned air to make this work right, the airbrushing work.
It is a can of air. You could hook it up to a compressor, but it's kind of noisy to carry a compressor around in your pocket.
And kind of heavy.
So there I've got my now red wood flourish.
Let's work on this one.
This name is green. I want it to be blue to match my album. But I don't want to lose that glitter.
Okay.
So again, I'm going to airbrush it. And look at how I keep the glitter, but I can change the color to match my color scheme. I get the edges all evenly, and there I can do, I can do a tone so it's darker at the bottom. So you really are creating your custom coordinating elements.
Let me see the star.
The star is red.
And it's a metal piece that you've already used as a die cut.
So I've die cut it out of a sheet of copper, and I want it to be a bright, vibrant red with a little bit of muted elements. So I'm going to do 2 layers of airbrushing here. We already know that we can get a nice even coating with the chisel end, but it's too smooth and clean. And I made this album for my brother, and he's a dirty kind of guy. So we want to make it look a little bit more distressed, antiqued, dirty. So I'm going to use the brush end. And see, the brush end is a different shape. And by
well, it's almost like a speckle.
It's a larger speckle, so I'm adding a larger, dirty speckle to it.
And we should mention that these little star gems were done using the red as well.
Yes.
Okay. And we can move on to the next one after you get, oh, we got purple. I like that.
Now they're purple.
Okay, very nice. Okay, so those are some elements. Let's turn to the next page on our album right here. And I'm going to move this out. And we can show that you also wanted to change some white paper into something else.
Yeah, so I I changed the starred paper so it's more muted, but now I needed a cardstock that would match that I could do my journaling on. So no patterns. So here I took that same wide marker.
And I like the overlapping does create a really neat background paper.
And if you're doing curving journaling, it gives you lines built into your paper.
That you could write along, okay.
That you can write on.
Okay.
And so I took this paper and I ran it through my die cut machine. I cut it out, and now I've got a wonderful die cut and embossed paper for journaling that's got my stripes built in, and it coordinates with my other elements.
And it almost looks like wood grain. Can we try this? This is like a piece of jute or rope or whatever you have,
sure.
Twine. But maybe, you know, it's bright white again, or
so this
brighter.
time, if I use the airbrush, it's going to blow all around.
Okay.
So I'm just taking the marker and I am just coloring directly onto the twine, so it's now more muted. It coordinates.
How would you clean all this up? It's nice we're using a craft mat underneath. And your fingers, that's really
Yes, if I get it on my fingers or on a craft mat or something, I'm just going to use some alcohol hand sanitizer.
Okay.
And I'm just going to
rub
get
it
a
in.
little bit on my fingers, clean it up, and this also gives you some fun effects.
Oh.
So you can dab it on and drip it on, and it will give you patterns that you wouldn't otherwise get.
It looks like it's been rained on, in a way.
So
very neat. Okay, now, this also works on paper, of course, and stampers. I could use some inks like this to work. I'm going to bring this one in right here.
It's very popular for stampers because the markers work on lots of surfaces. We've already used it on paper, so we know it works well on paper, and we can match our elements. So there's our little stars. So when I'm coloring on paper,
you're using the brush side?
I'm using the brush. I'm coloring in little circles to get it nice and evenly coated.
And again, what kind of pigment ink would you use when you stamp? Does it matter?
You want to use an ink that is waterproof but not solvent based.
Okay.
And then you have to test it because each paper and ink combination is going to be a little different.
Okay.
And so as I'm coloring, you notice I'm going back over a spot and it's not causing the paper to pill or get destroyed.
Right.
And that's just the nature of the inks.
Now you're using a darker?
I'm using a darker to add my shadow in. And it looks kind of flat. So I go back with my lighter color.
Oh, it almost blends.
It blends together beautifully.
Okay.
And so I can get my natural shadows in there.
I want to know how you got those little dots almost on the, looks like worn boots.
So just like the hand sanitizer reacted with the marker, so the marker has a pure blender base.
Oh, and just dots.
So you can just dab that on, just like the hand sanitizer.
Surprising how much texture that adds. We have a few more samples, and we'll show you right now if we can. Another stamped card with the bird, and that was actually white ribbon that you changed the color on.
That's right, just like we did with the twine. I just colored the ribbon directly.
And then added a nice element using other stamps, etc. Thank you very much, Marianne. We appreciate it. We'll be right back.
For more projects and ideas, visit us on the web at scrapbookmemoriestv.com. This is show 1408. Scrapbook Memories has been made possible by